Hi, everybody. I'm Donna Baker, and thank you for joining me on The Faces of Monrovia. KGEM is kind enough to allow me to bring my guests in that you can probably read about on my website called thefacesofmonroviaca.com. I've interviewed about 100 and so people, all people from Monrovia with stories to tell. And today I am delighted to introduce you to my friend Chris Lowe's. Hi, Chris.
Hey, Donna.
How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me here. I love what you've done with Faces of Monrovia, from the first questionnaire and seeing it on Facebook groups and getting to see different people to now really getting to hear conversations.
Yeah. I was really happy when KGEM reached out to me and suggested this, because I thought it's just a normal way for it to progress into live, right? Sure. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I know we have a lot of the answers for the questionnaire on the website, but I'm going to go a little farther than that so we can expand on a lot of the stuff that people may not know about you, right? Yeah. So first of all, tell us how you ended up here in Monrovia.
So let's see, Monrovia. So we were in Pasadena first.
Your mom and dad?
Mom and dad.
Okay.
Mom and dad and grandma and grandpa.
Oh, okay. And they came from?
From Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka. Yeah. So you're Sri Lankan.
Yes. So Sri Lankan and Dutch, to be technically.
So that's where the Lowe's comes from, right?
Correct. It's
the
a Dutch last name.
Okay.
Otherwise, the Sri Lankan last name will be 3 or 4 syllables, possibly.
And lots of vowels.
Yeah, like my mom is, Dial Wisjaya Singer.
Oh, my.
I'm glad I scored.
Let's stick with Lowe's.
Yeah, thank you, Mom. So theirs was escaping, I guess, really, for a better opportunity out of Sri Lanka, with the hopes, and my mom and dad weren't married at that moment, so that was a thing of you're leaving and you're not married, but they were look, we want to get married and have a family in a better country. And at the time, just from what I've been learning more recently, there was London, Australia, and the United States were kind of had the most open arms to immigrants that were looking for something better. So I have a lot of family in Australia. I have family in the UK as well. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, and
so
then
they kind of all went everywhere.
Yeah, so we got a pretty decent amount of family that ended up being here, Pasadena specifically.
Okay.
And there is kind of a big Sri Lankan community, decent size in Pasadena. Yeah.
Okay.
So then we were there, and then it was apartment. We were in an apartment at the time, 6 of us in a little apartment. So Monrovia was the move that...
It was more affordable too, right, when they came here? Yeah.
1989.
89. So how old were you then? You were a youngster.
Youngster getting ready to go into high school.
1989. I came here in 1987, so I did not grow up here either, but I feel like it's my hometown. You know, I mean, when... It just feels like my hometown, right?
Yeah, for
Same
sure.
with you. Yeah. Okay, so you came here, you went through all the schools then, or you went to high school here?
High school here,
Just high school, okay. And you have a wife and a son. Tell us about them.
Yeah, they're awesome. It's
of course they are.
And it's such a cool, full circle thing, getting to be in the house that that's the house I grew up in, because the apartment kind of doesn't really count. But to be there with Elijah and Sabina is
And how did you meet your wife?
We had a bunch of mutual friends, and as we kind of have conversations about how we met, we were at parties at the same time. We were at concerts and events at the same exact time.
But you didn't know each other.
Or even maybe we saw each other, but
you weren't aware of each other.
Yeah. So, and then it led to, I was at a radio station, and our midday host and her were friends from, I'm probably getting it wrong, but it was either 21, what's the spot at the mall, 21?
Forever 21.
Forever 21. And so one of those stores, they worked there together.
Okay.
So they were friends, and she came over to visit her friend, and I was like,
Who is that?
Who's your friend?
Good. Yeah. Well, speaking of the radio, I know that that's sort of your baby, right? That's your passion, is being on the radio. You're a DJ. You do what else?
Yeah,
Radio,
that was my dream.
life.
Like that was like so. First dream was the NBA. It
And
didn't
you're tall,
quite
so
go that way,
not tall
unfortunately.
enough,
I got
right?
to play overseas after high school. We went to France and Europe and played out there. Came back. I was 17. And just
Not
thought,
driven
like,
enough.
yeah, for sure. I felt like I should be on the Lakers now because I played overseas. So why am I not pro? And didn't really have the work ethic. Now that I look at it, I needed that humbling experience.
Yeah, I know somebody that did that with baseball. He, went over to Cuba to play, but he had so much fun partying that he didn't really apply himself to the baseball part of it, right? And
Yeah.
so there went baseball.
Yeah. So then it was like I had no idea what I'm gonna do. I was trying like graphic design, and then I realized they're really good artists, and I doodle really good and sketch really good. Business and finance seemed like it made a lot of money, but I had zero passion, and these books were putting me to sleep. And then it was like, okay, an older cousin of mine was like, well, why don't you look at the communications program at Pasadena City College?
Oh, that's where I graduated from.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. So I went there and was like, okay, cool. And I loved the radio at the time more because there's artists that I'm like, wow, these hosts get to talk to these. I love music.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I can't sing, I can't rap, but I love music. And that kind of was like, this would be a cool job. And that was the dream. Then that became my next, like, okay, I gotta try to be on the radio.
And you succeeded, right?
Yeah.
Were you on KPCC?
They didn't let me on KPCC.
Really?
Yeah. I was too urban, was what I was told. And
Too urban.
You're a nice guy, Chris, but you should probably try something else. So that was coming from this lady who was at K-Rock. So she was like this big deal at that time. Even though I'm doing like everything for her show except for talking, I was like, all right. But
That's interesting.
It worked
I
out.
would think that would be a good thing, that radio and media would be into urbanization and people that represent, right? I mean,
in 2023, yes.
yes, but not
At
then.
that time, I had to change my name, Donna. I was Chris Knight.
No way.
I had to pick Chris Knight or Chris Fields. I'm like, I'm not going to be Chris Fields in Bakersfield. Like,
You're the knight in shining armor, right?
yeah. So,
No, I like Lewis better.
yeah. I'm glad.
Okay, so you did that for a while, and you learned how to mix and edit and do all that stuff.
Yeah, it was radio live is just the best. So
Yeah.
it was nothing like doing that. That was Bakersfield. Kind of came back to LA. Most of the time here in California with a little blip in Idaho, which was an experience in
Yes,
itself.
I bet.
Yeah, then it just kind of media evolved, and it was wanting to get into. I love sports, so when I was in San Diego, we were kind of putting a show together to do stuff for football, for ESPN, for the local station
very
out there.
cool.
So sports, music, and radio was kind of the platform that allowed me to have fun.
We have that in common. I'm a sports nut, except for basketball. Sorry.
That's all right.
Music was my life growing up. I mean, the last guest I had was Stephanie Radnati, and music is her passion too.
Yeah.
And I just, that's what I did growing up. I wanted to be a rock and roll singer. I can't sing worth beans, but that was my dream, right?
We could have had a band.
Yeah, we could have had a band. I can play bass. No, I can't. Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little
Yeah.
bit. So speaking of sports, I always thought that was a Detroit Tigers hat that you wear always, right? I mean, that's the
Right.
hat you always have on.
Yeah.
And all this time I thought, oh, he's a Detroit Tiger fan. Now, how did that happen? And then I found out that's not at all what it is. That is for your wonderful brainchild,
Yeah.
the I Dream Society.
Correct.
So tell us about the I Dream Society and what the goal of that and the purpose is of I Dream, and how you came up with the idea.
Yeah. So being in radio, like I always went with every opportunity to talk to schools. So it kind of just started with like, oh, this is cool. Like, And it was with the thought of, we didn't have that in high school. We never had anybody cool coming. We got the fireman, the cop, and maybe a lawyer or something like that.
Career day, right?
Career day. And so that was about it. So I just love that. I'm like, I'm a radio dude now. I can talk to these young people. I get what they enjoy from the music side of it. Plus, maybe I can encourage one of them to, try to do this too if I got here. And that just kind of led to like, well, how do I do this better? And how can I do it more? And then it was like, well, we got this Socks for the Block event together where we were collecting socks and getting them to people who are unsheltered and could use them. And all of these things were just kind of through the tool of, or the vessel of radio, right? And it was like, well, I'm on the radio. I can use this platform here to do cool things in the community. I always led like the community show and stuff like that. And then we were doing a socks event and we had a casino offer a $5,000. They were like, hey, we love what you're doing, Chris. We want to give you, who do we cut the check to? And I'm like,
you can't give it to me because you can't write it off, right?
Can you just bring me $5,000 worth of socks? And they're like, oh, love you, honey, but no, we can't do that. And so that was like, okay, Chris, if you really want to do like good in your community, like you gotta be prepared to grow it.
Right.
And that was where I had to like, okay, Chris, make this a 501c3.
Perfect.
And it kind of went everywhere at that time. We were doing Socks for the Block. We're talking to schools. And it was like, okay, we got to focus this thing. I was serving on a few other boards with mentor groups and just learning like, okay, let's dial it in and just empower young people. And whatever that looks like, let's do that. Encouraging leadership, encouraging them to really max out their resources. We got a phone now that does way more than... some computers were doing. So just helping them. And it started, we put together a program called the Digital Dreamers Academy. And that was a 6-week program in the back of an Apple store that we were just teaching them how to use Final Cut, how to use Logic, and how we can get their vision to come to life using these tools.
That's fantastic. And just so you guys know, it really is, they have a 501c3. Their mission is to make a significant difference for the future of our youth by empowering a new generation of motivated leaders. And so that's key, I think, to guiding our youth in a very proactive way into getting involved, right? Into not just sitting behind a computer and playing Warcraft, right? Or whatever the kids play nowadays. I don't know what it is.
But here's the thing, right? So the thought was like with Minecraft or whatever you're playing, right? It was get those friends. Like we have one thing called the Hometown Cleanup, and it's on the website. You could see we broke it down into simple steps, right? To help them become a leader in a very simple manner. Call your friends that you game with, that you hoop with, whatever you and your friends do. Reach out to them, let them know, hey, I saw a park over here, or this street over here in my neighborhood is kind of trashed. Meet me over here on Saturday, 1 o'clock. Bring the gloves, bring the bags, organize it, right? And it's taking the initiative to get their friends together, clean it up, throw Hometown Cleanup on the hashtag, post a flick. In 30 minutes, you can kind of take care of a whole neighborhood with like 4 or 5 people.
And I think probably coming from somebody like you versus coming from somebody like, me, it probably had much more of an impact on the kids to say, hey, this guy's right. We can do this on our own, right? We don't need a bunch of old people telling us what to do. Not that you're, as young as they are, but I have to tell you, I have been privileged to be in the same room with you when you were at the Duarte High School Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Yeah.
And you were the MC there. And the kids went crazy over you. I mean, the high school kids. And none of the seniors were there. It was freshmen, juniors, and sophomores, right? And they just ate you up. I mean, they were just like, yeah, he's so cool, right? And then I saw you again as an MC at the Monrovia Duarte Black Alumni Association luncheon that they had, where you introduced one of your favorite teachers from high school, Mrs. Ty, right?
Yes.
And those people ate you up. It's like, this Chris, he can go anywhere and get the crowd, pull in the crowd. So What do you attest that attraction that you put out from people,
I think
for people?
from maybe being in rooms that are just dry. You know,
Yeah, that
like
makes
just sitting there and you're just like, why do they talk? Like they don't care.
Exactly. That's the point. You care.
Yeah.
And
for
I
sure.
think it's contagious, right? I mean, if they see that the person up there on the stage cares about the people in the room,
Yeah.
I think it really ignites people to listen, because a lot of times you go to those events and people are just sitting there talking to each other and not paying attention to the guy on stage. And so I
Yeah.
think it's great that you have that attraction to
Thank
people.
you. I won't host every event, Donna. Trust, like I gotta care. Like
Well, that's true. Yeah, I mean that's very important that it's something close to your heart,
Yeah.
because when you do have that feeling of caring about an organization or a place, it definitely makes a difference in how you present yourself, right?
Yeah, for
If you're
sure.
bored, you're bored.
and it comes like, you know, radio, you're hosting events, everything from car shows to club nights to concerts. So that was like the thing for me of like, okay, mind you, Donna, up until like, man, I might even say like after high school, I was probably the shyest kid in the
No
class.
way.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine you being shy.
If you
Well,
ask
I was
any
shy
of my
too, by
friends
the
in
way.
school, they'd snitch on me.
Yeah?
I was quiet.
I had like really curly hair and big old thick glasses, and I just didn't talk in school at all. My tooth was broken.
Okay, so let me flip this and ask you then, what was it that changed for you? Because I see
I
you
got my
being-
teeth fixed.
Okay.
And I got contact lenses. And, you know, I graduated when I was 17. And then I went out on my own. But it was like opening Pandora's box once I got my teeth fixed. Because I didn't talk, you know, I didn't talk. I was shy. I didn't date. I didn't do any of that stuff. So,
Yeah, that's something too that like I always, when we talk to young people, it's like confidence is something I want to pour into them.
I think that's really important, and self-esteem, right? And I mean, I think it's much tougher nowadays for kids than it was when I was growing up. But I was bullied. I know what kids go through. You know,
Sure.
I mean, I was not a good-looking kid, and I was, you know, had an inferiority complex, and you know, kids can feel that, right? And
Yeah.
then they take advantage of it. Right?
For
They
sure.
throw you under the bus as much as they can. So I like to tell people that, you know, I wasn't always this outgoing and gregarious, you know, and it takes some doing, right? But it was there. It just somehow somebody needs to encourage it to come out.
It's that
Something
confidence
needs to happen.
unlock.
Yeah.
Whatever
for
that
sure.
is for different people, I think is, you know, like once you find something you're passionate about and you really stop caring about what other people think.
That's the key. That's the key.
Right.
And sometimes that comes with age, right? I mean, I still always cared about what people thought about me until I got into real estate. And then, and I do care what people think about me. And I think, you know, there's an attraction that I attract certain kind of people, right?
Yeah.
Who do want to
Yeah.
do business with me. There are some people that aren't going to want to do business with me. They don't like that, right? They want somebody who's just cut and dry, business-like. But, you know, it all evens out in the end, right?
Yeah, totally.
So let me switch gears again.
Yeah.
So what is it you like to do for fun
Oh man.
besides radio stuff?
Yeah, besides radio stuff, I like playing pickleball with my son. Like,
Really?
Oh man.
You're a pickleball guy.
Pickleball is fun.
Where do you play?
Have you played before?
You know, my knees aren't going to let
Okay.
me play, but I was always when I was in high school, they had a thing called volley tennis, and so it was like playing on a tennis court but with a volleyball, and it bounced just like in tennis. You know, you
Okay.
served it, so it was like a hybrid volleyball and tennis
Okay.
together. So I think it's sort of the same, right? Except it's a smaller court.
It's like a maybe ping pong and tennis mixed
okay.
together in this cooler way because it's a paddle. It's not like a racket.
Okay.
So it's a wooden paddle and it's a wiffle ball.
Okay.
So you
it's
kind
got
of
holes in it.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's a smaller court. It's not the whole tennis court.
It's
so
half.
you're not running as much either.
It's half of the court, right? It's
They
one
almost
side.
retaped the inside. Yeah.
oh, okay.
But right here at Rec Park, right outside the studios, they have it. They have two of the courts are taped off
Are they?
for pickleball.
Oh, cool. That's good.
Yeah.
I know I have a couple of friends that play, and they go everywhere. There's a court in Duarte, and they have games every week. And she goes to Sierra Madre and plays,
Okay.
and she plays. I guess she plays here. She told me she came here every once in a while. But I'm on the Empower board with the Monrovia Parks Wilderness Recreation Foundation. In our sites is Rec Park.
Oh.
So we really want to start concentrating some of our efforts over here because, you know, it was Canyon Park, and so we're going to help up there with signage and things like that. And then Lucinda Garcia Park, we were helpful in that. And now we're moving over to Rec Park. And so they're going to really, they're looking at all these options. Community meetings were last week, and I think there's one in April.
Yeah.
And so people should come and say, you know, here's what we would really like happening over here at Rec Park. So I really was telling them that the baseball field and all this stuff related to baseball and the skate park and that parking lot out here all needs attention, right?
Yeah, and it's such a great space.
It's huge. Yeah. So, okay, so you play pickleball.
Basketball. I mean, I kind of have to, you know, ease up on the skateboard. I ate it the other day, something crazy, and I was like, hey, you know what? Maybe it might be time. I had a good run.
At some point, you kind of figure out, okay, I'm not as young as I used to be.
Yeah,
Right?
like falling hurts a lot more now. Like,
Yeah, I fell the other night. I went to a wedding and I had a long gown on, and I told my husband, I said, you know, I got to make sure I pick up my skirt so I don't trip. And I went through the entire night, and I got home and I started to walk up the steps to my front porch, and I fell on the dress.
Dang.
This morning I woke up. Why does my
And
wrist
you were so
hurt?
close.
So close. Yeah, so I used to work at a software company when I was a secretary, and those guys would go play basketball every lunchtime, right? They would go, not basketball, soccer. And one day, one of the guys who was older than me, and at the time I was in my 40s, and he was older than me, and he came back and he had fallen down and he was scraped up, and it was like, you know, Lewis, you're not as young as you remember. Maybe it's time for you to hang up your soccer shoes. So funny how that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what's your favorite place to go to in Monrovia?
Favorite place for what?
For whatever. I mean, when you think of Monrovia, what places do you think of?
I mean, I guess I think of Myrtle Street just off of the jump of
Like Old Town, you mean?
Yeah, Old Town, Friday night. I love the little restaurants over there. Love Cafe on Lemon, Sunday's Old Town Bistro, Meringue.
I love Sunday. She's a doll, and Soren are such nice
Incredible,
people.
yeah. And Sydney is teaching over at Clifton now.
She is?
Yeah.
Wow. I remember her being so young. I can't believe she's old enough to be a teacher now.
Yeah, but I love our community for that.
Yeah.
That's super cool to me.
Yeah, I think it's great that we see generations of people here that, you know, even though I didn't grow up here, so I don't have that connection with generations, to find out so-and-so is related to so-and-so is related to so-and-so.
Yeah.
Or one of my interviews, I think it's coming out today on the Faces of Monrovia page, is a young woman who is like fourth generation Monrovian, and I had no idea until I did her interview, and she started answering all these questions. I was like, I had no idea. It's
That's
like,
cool.
that's so cool, you know, like the Steve Baker, you know, history was pretty astounding too. I mean, his great grandmother lived here, so to see how families stay here. That's really something to say about Monrovia, is that people don't leave. They like being here. And as a real estate agent, I can tell you that when people sell their houses, they sell them to buy another house in Monrovia. It's like they don't leave unless they're leaving the state, right?
Yeah. I do want to see more like outside of downtown, like the cool spots. Like I love Lucinda Garcia Park and what's going on over there. That's super cool. But like, what are gonna be those other, like we had Man 6 Theater back in the day. Like that was the spot.
Down on Huntington Oaks.
Yeah, and seeing it empty, I always get sad.
Yeah,
like
I know.
I would flip this whole thing up if I had, you know what I mean? If I could, like, it was such a popping parking lot. There was something like, because there was the pizza spot next to it.
Round Table, yeah, they were right next door, right?
It was great.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, I don't remember the parade going down Foothill Boulevard. That was before my time.
Okay.
That might have been before your time too. The Monrovia Day Parade used to come down Foothill instead of through Old Town.
So that's where the disconnect of like family not from America was different. Because like we never really did too much in the city type of stuff.
Oh,
like,
really?
It would just be like school, because my parents worked. And so growing up in Sri Lanka, they were like, well, if you're in school, you're doing stuff, right?
Right.
Cool. So there was never like a let's go and
outside interests kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like, cool, you're doing well, everything is good, you're not in any trouble.
That was the important one right there, is that you're not in any trouble and you're learning, right?
Right.
It's always a good thing to learn.
Yeah.
So is there anything else that you want to tell our audience about you or your society or your life or your family, anything that you want to talk about?
I would love to see more involvement from our community in the simplest space, wherever that makes sense for them. Because, Don, I never thought I'd be like putting together a television show to recap the city council meetings. Like, that wasn't a goal or an idea, but it was like, I think this is important.
Yeah, and thank you for inviting me to help be one of your presenters on that show. I mean, we're sort of playing off of each other here, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about that the last time we were together, about how it's hard to find people that are willing to get involved. And really, I think if you're going to live in a city, you should probably find out as much about it as you can, right? And especially if you're younger, get involved when you're a teenager, like the youth commission or whatever, right? And I think that involvement is the key to living in a community and getting the most out of it.
For sure, right? Yeah, and I think too, like, it's not as intimidating as people think.
No, it isn't.
I think that's the part too where you're like, I'm not going, because like even going to talk at a city council meeting, I was like,
well, if I get up in front of the city council, my voice shakes. It's
same.
But the more you do it, the better off you are. And I know they say you have to just pretend you're looking at naked people when you talk, right? But I never could do that. It's like I still get nervous talking.
Yeah.
But I have to tell you, before COVID, I ran into you and Elijah at Sugarland or Sugar.
Oh,
what
yeah.
is it called?
Yeah, the candy store on
Sugarland.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Yeah. Shout out to Miguel, they're awesome people. And you had mentioned something about you wanted to do a program about Monrovia. So I kind of feel like I stole your thunder.
Oh, no. And that's the thing too, right? Like, ideas are all like there, and I'm like, just go out and do it. Like, there's plenty of space for Inside Monrovia and Faces of Monrovia and the city council recap and someone else's idea. Like, if we're all here in the community and we have these ideas, I think let's just sit
Ideas
down.
are great, and there's no bad idea, right? That's what I tell people. When we're brainstorming about things, nothing is a bad idea. Throw it out there because you just don't know. It might work.
Yep. Or I throw it out there and then you tell me, Chris, good idea. What if we did it this way? Then we could get bop, bop, bop.
Right.
And it's like, oh my gosh, thank you. I never even thought of that. But it was in my head.
Collaboration.
But until it came out.
Yeah.
And that's where, if I could encourage anyone to just get it out of your head, onto a piece of paper, into a conversation, into something. Not Facebook. Don't do Facebook. Because Facebook stuff just lives on Facebook. People that complain on Facebook just like to complain on Facebook. They're not for real about doing anything. Don't believe it. That's what I've learned. That would be my rant.
Now, I will have to tell you, Facebook is good if you're in business, to let people get to know you a little bit, right? And
I'm talking
that's
about
where
the
it's
Facebook
good.
groups, Donna.
You're talking about the big groups where people go on to complain about stuff, and Nextdoor is bad too. I mean, that's all people do is complain.
Yeah.
It's like, if you want to complain, you have to do something about it to fix it, right? But they don't want to do that. They just want to complain. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time.
Okay.
I feel like, just like with everybody I've talked to in person, I think we could just sit and talk for hours at a time, right? I wish we had hours.
For sure.
But KGEM has been awesome. KGEM, and honestly, anybody that's interested in producing a program, if you come up with an idea, talk to KGEM about it. You might just get a yes from them, right?
For sure.
So thank you so much for joining us. Again, the website is thefacesofmonroviaca.com. If you would like to be featured on as an interview on the website, I can't get to everybody in person. I still got 100 people to go. But for now, if you'd like to be featured as a Face of Monrovia on the website, please feel free to reach out to me, donna.baker@elliman.com, ELLIMAN. Or if you know somebody who you think would be a great person for me to talk to and interview for the website, you can go on the facesofmonroviaca.com and hit the nominate button, and you can nominate anybody. And I get so excited when I get new nominations or people nominate themselves, which you can also do. So thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Chris, for being my guest this week. I'm just so excited to have you here.
Thank you.
Couldn't wait to have our interview together.
Yeah, same.
And I hope to see you guys on our next show, which will probably be in a couple more weeks. Thanks. Bye.